At 8:03 a.m., the sound of the clock echoed through the sterile conference room, each tick reverberating in my mind like a countdown to my inevitable demise. The executives sat before me, their faces a blend of apathy and feigned concern, as if they were delivering bad news to a stranger rather than a once-valued member of their team. I had poured my heart and soul into this company, yet here I was, staring into the eyes of the very people I had trusted with my career. The words rolled off the lips of the CEO, cold and calculated. "We have to let you go. Your position is no longer necessary." Each syllable felt like a blade, carving deeper into my pride. I could feel the weight of their indifference pressing down on my chest. I had always known the stakes were high in this corporate jungle, but I never anticipated being the one discarded so carelessly. As I stood up, a mix of disbelief and anger surged within me. I had dedicated years to this organization, contributing to the very systems that kept it afloat. Yet in this moment, I was reduced to a mere liability. The taste of betrayal lingered on my tongue, a bitter reminder of how quickly trust could evaporate in the boardroom. Before I could muster a response, I noticed the security personnel moving in, their presence a stark reminder of the finality of my situation. They approached me with an unsettling formality, as if I were a threat rather than a former employee. My heart raced as I realized I was being escorted out, not just from the building, but from a life I had meticulously built over the years. Walking past my colleagues, their eyes averted, I felt the weight of their silence. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. It was as if I had become invisible, a ghost slipping through the cracks of a world that had once welcomed me with open arms. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glare on the polished floors, illuminating the path to my exit. As we reached the exit doors, I glanced back one last time. The world I had fought so hard for was now behind me, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead felt like a chasm opening beneath my feet. I stepped outside into the crisp morning air, the biting wind a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere of the office. In that moment, I was left alone with my thoughts, a whirlwind of emotions battling for dominance. Anger, betrayal, and a flicker of determination ignited within me. I had been cast aside, but I wouldn't let it end here. I would find a way to turn this setback into an opportunity. The sound of the door closing behind me was final, yet in that silence, I could feel the first seeds of resolve taking root. The executives may have thought they had won, but they had underestimated my ability to adapt and fight back. I was not done yet. As I walked away from the building, I could feel the tension of the morning settling into a new purpose. I would harness this rage, this sense of injustice, and redirect it towards something greater. The wheels were turning in my mind, and I knew this was merely the beginning of a new chapter, one that would take them by surprise. I had been part of something monumental, the $920 million system that powered our operations. It was not just software, it was the backbone of the organization, a sophisticated network seamlessly connecting various departments, streamlining processes, and ensuring that every cog in the machine worked in harmony. I had poured countless hours into its development, from its initial conception to its ongoing maintenance. As the architect behind the system, I understood every line of code, every parameter that dictated its functions. This system was not merely a tool, it was a weapon against inefficiency, a fortress safeguarding our data and operations. The executives had relied on my insights to navigate through the complexities of corporate demands, trusting me to enhance its capabilities while ensuring its security. I had designed it to adapt, to learn from its environment, and to anticipate the needs of our stakeholders. I remembered the late nights spent in the server room, the hum of machines providing a steady backdrop as I fine-tuned the algorithms that governed the system's operations. It had become a part of me as much as I was a part of it. There was a profound sense of pride in knowing that my work had not only elevated the company's performance, but had also made a significant impact on the industry. But now, with my termination, I could feel the first cracks forming in that fortress. The executives, blind to the intricacies of the system, had severed the only connection that kept it alive and thriving. It wasn't just my job that had been taken from me, it was my legacy, my creation, and I could not let it fall into disarray. My mind raced with thoughts of the potential chaos that could ensue without my oversight. I imagined the executives huddled together, their faces contorted with confusion when they realized the extent of my role. They had dismissed me, but they had also neglected to understand the fragility of their own operations. The system was designed to recognize termination events, a feature I had implemented as a safeguard against potential threats. Once it detected my absence, control would gradually shift, unraveling the carefully woven fabric of our corporate structure. The feeling of power surged within me as I walked away, a realization dawning that this could be my advantage. I had not only built the system, I had embedded myself within it. I could turn the tables and exploit the very chaos they had created by dismissing me. As I moved farther from the building, I envisioned the executives sitting in their conference room, unaware of the impending storm. I could almost hear their murmurs of disbelief mixed with rising panic as they struggled to understand why their operations were faltering. I had built a system that could operate independently, but it was only as strong as its architect. And now, without me, it was vulnerable, a ship adrift in turbulent waters. I knew that they would come to realize their mistake, that they had underestimated the depth of our connection. The $920 million system would soon become a reflection of my absence, a haunting reminder of the trust they had so carelessly broken. And in that moment of realization, I would be ready. Every decision I had made, every late night I had endured, it all led to this juncture. The executives might think they had severed ties with me, but they were about to see that in the world of technology, connections run deeper than mere employment. The game was far from over, it was merely transforming into a new battlefield, one where I would reclaim my power. As the minutes ticked by, I felt a palpable shift in the atmosphere surrounding the executives. They had gathered in their conference room, their expressions a blend of confusion and growing anxiety. The $920 million system was not just a piece of technology, it was the core of their operations, and they were about to realize just how much they had taken it for granted. With each passing second, the realization that they had cut the lifeline to the very foundation of their company would dawn on them. I could almost visualize them, sitting around the polished mahogany table, their voices rising in a frantic debate. I had seen it countless times before, the way they would rely on each other's opinions, the way they were so accustomed to my presence that they had overlooked my significance. They would soon discover that I was not just a cog in their machine. I was the mastermind behind its intricate workings. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a reminder of the lifeline I still possessed. I had set up notifications for the system's status, a safety measure I had put in place for moments just like this. As I pulled it out and glanced at the screen, a smirk crept onto my lips. The alerts were flashing, critical errors, system failures, and security breaches. It was as if the system itself was crying out, echoing my own sense of betrayal. With each alert, I could feel the weight of power shifting back to me. I had anticipated this chaos, had built the defenses with the foresight that it could one day be my only weapon. I had the ability to control the system remotely, and right now, it was my turn to play the game on my terms. I took a moment to collect my thoughts, channeling the anger and frustration into a calculated plan. The executives would be scrambling to regain control, and I could use that to my advantage. They had severed their connection to me, but they hadn't realized that I remained the true architect of their downfall. As I navigated through the alerts on my phone, I could imagine their faces contorting in panic as they struggled to comprehend what was happening. The system was designed to recognize termination events, a protocol I had embedded deep within its architecture. It would initiate a lockdown procedure, effectively freezing operations and sending them into a tailspin. This was my opportunity to demonstrate the consequences of underestimating my role. I could visualize the executives on the other side of the wall, their confidence shattering with each incoming alert. They had believed they could easily replace me, that the company would continue to operate seamlessly without my guidance. But they were mistaken. I had built the system to operate independently, yet it required my oversight to function optimally. Without me, it was a mere shadow of its potential, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. I felt a rush of adrenaline surging through me as I crafted my next move. It was time to show them just how much they had lost. I began to manipulate the system from my phone, redirecting certain operations to highlight the vulnerabilities they had overlooked. I could almost hear the frantic whispers of disbelief as they realized that their once flourishing empire was crumbling before their very eyes. Every notification I triggered sent a wave of confusion through their ranks. I imagined the executives exchanging frantic glances, their previous aloofness replaced by desperation. They had thought they could cast me aside, but now they were witnessing the consequences of their short-sightedness. As the clock approached 8:45 a.m., I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. The system was now in a state of chaos, and I was the one holding the strings. I reveled in the knowledge that they had underestimated my capabilities, and I was about to turn the tables. With each passing moment, the executives would come to realize that their decision had not only affected me, but it threatened the very foundation of their operations. I had not just lost a job, I had ignited a storm that would expose their vulnerabilities and shake the very core of their company. The power had shifted, and I was ready to reclaim my place in this game. I would no longer be the discarded employee. I would be the architect of their downfall. The chaos they had unknowingly unleashed would serve as my weapon, and I would wield it with precision. As I prepared to unleash the full extent of my plan, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The executives had made their move, but now it was my turn to respond. They may have thought they had won, but they were about to learn a valuable lesson about the cost of arrogance. I was no longer sidelined, I was back in control, and the game had only just begun. Each notification I triggered was like a countdown to their reckoning, a promise that I would not go quietly. The storm was brewing, and I was ready to ride the waves of chaos back to the center of the arena. They would soon understand that in the world of technology, the most powerful connections are not always the most visible. And as I stood on the precipice of this new battle, I felt a powerful resolve wash over me. The executives had ignited a fire within me, one that would not be extinguished until I had reclaimed everything I had lost. This was my moment, and I would seize it with both hands. As the clock struck 8:45 a.m., I could feel the tension in the air thickening like a storm cloud ready to burst. The executives, who had once appeared so invincible, were now backed into a corner, their confidence shattered by the critical notifications flooding their screens. I had been watching their frantic attempts to regain control unfold like a well-rehearsed play, and I felt a cold satisfaction as I orchestrated the chaos from afar. Seated in their conference room, they had transformed from aloof decision-makers to desperate individuals grasping at straws. The once calm facade of the CEO cracked, revealing the panic beneath as he barked orders to his subordinates, their faces pale with disbelief. They had thought they could sever their ties to me without consequence, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson about the importance of understanding the very systems they relied upon. "What do you mean the system is locked down?" I could almost hear him shout, his voice echoing through the walls as I stood outside, a ghost hovering on the periphery of their unraveling empire. The notifications continued to roll in. Data breaches, system failures, and security alerts that were like music to my ears. Each alert was a reminder that I was not just a discarded employee, I was the architect of their downfall. In a matter of minutes, the once bustling office atmosphere transformed into a chaotic frenzy. The executives' faces were a tapestry of confusion and fear, each one grappling with the realization that their reliance on my expertise had left them vulnerable. The $920 million system, their pride and joy, was now a ticking time bomb, and they were helpless to defuse it. I imagined the executives' frantic whispers, each one accusing the other of negligence, oblivious to the fact that it was their collective arrogance that had led them to this moment. They had taken my contributions for granted, assuming that the system's operations would continue seamlessly without my oversight. But they were wrong. Now they were just sheep lost in a storm, and I was the wolf ready to strike. As I monitored the unfolding chaos, I felt a surge of exhilaration. This was my moment to reclaim my power, to demonstrate that I was not just a cog in their machine, but the very engine driving their success. I had embedded myself within the system, and now I was poised to unleash its full potential, or its complete breakdown, at my command. I contemplated my next move, the thrill of control coursing through me. They had fired me, but I was far from defeated. I began to manipulate the system further, purposefully exacerbating the situation to highlight the vulnerabilities they had overlooked. I could envision the executives, their brows furrowed, glancing at one another with mounting dread as they struggled to comprehend the gravity of what was transpiring. "This is a nightmare," one of them would inevitably exclaim, the very words echoing the panic that had set in. I had anticipated their reactions, and I reveled in the knowledge that their arrogance had blinded them to the consequences of their actions. They had thought they could easily replace me, but now they were learning that the foundation of their success was crumbling beneath their feet. As the clock continued to tick, I monitored the executives' every move, their frustration palpable. They had underestimated my connection to the system, and now they were paying the price. I envisioned their meeting descending into chaos as they bickered over blame, each one desperately attempting to restore order in a world that I had effectively turned upside down. The chaos reached a fever pitch as their attempts to salvage the situation failed one after another. I could almost taste the panic radiating from their voices, the realization dawning on them that they had lost control of the very system they had relied upon. They had thought they were invincible, yet here they were at the mercy of their own hubris. With each passing moment, the executives would find themselves increasingly isolated, their once unified front fracturing under the weight of their predicament. I had orchestrated this downfall, and now it was only a matter of time before they succumbed to the chaos I had unleashed. As the clock approached 8:50 a.m., I felt a surge of triumph. My plan was working flawlessly, and I was ready to take the final steps to solidify my victory. I had not just lost a job, I had ignited a storm that would expose their vulnerabilities and shake the very core of their company. They had thought they could discard me, but now they were realizing that their arrogance had led to their self-destruction. With one final push, I activated a protocol I had embedded deep within the system, a fail-safe that would freeze their operations and force them to confront the chaos they had created. I could almost hear the gasp of disbelief as they realized that their empire was crumbling, the very foundation they had built their success upon slipping through their fingers. The realization would hit them like a freight train, and in that moment I would be ready. I had seized control of the narrative, and now I was the master of my fate. I would no longer be the discarded employee, I would be the architect of their downfall. As the clock struck 8:55 a.m., I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle around me. The executives had made their move, but now it was my turn to respond. They had ignited a fire within me, one that would not be extinguished until I had reclaimed everything I had lost. This was my moment, and I would seize it with both hands. The executives had underestimated me, and soon they would understand that in the world of technology, the most powerful connections are not always the most visible. And as I stood on the precipice of this new battle, I felt a powerful resolve wash over me. The storm was brewing, and I was ready to ride the waves of chaos back into the center of the arena. The game had changed, and I was back in control, poised to reclaim my place in this ruthless corporate landscape. With the clock now ticking past 8:55 a.m., the atmosphere in the executives' conference room had transformed into one of sheer panic. They had believed that the $920 million system could weather any storm, yet here they were, grappling with the consequences of their decisions. I could almost hear their frantic attempts at communication, voices rising in desperation as they recognized the gravity of their error. "How did we let this happen?" the CEO's voice echoed, a mix of disbelief and frustration. I savored the moment, knowing that their arrogance had led them to overlook the very foundation of their empire. They had severed ties with me, dismissing my contributions as if they were insignificant. But now, they were learning the hard way that I was not merely a cog in their machine, I was the engine that drove their success. As the notifications continued to flash across their screens, I knew they were realizing just how intertwined I was with their operations. The chaos I had orchestrated was a testament to my foresight, a reminder that technology is as fragile as it is powerful. I had built a system that could operate independently, but it was only as strong as the architect who designed it. Without me, it was vulnerable, and they were witnessing the consequences of their short-sightedness unfold in real time. Every critical error that appeared on their displays was a nail in the coffin of their confidence. They had assumed they could replace me, that the system would run smoothly without my oversight, but they were wrong. The system had been designed to recognize termination events, and it had initiated a lockdown procedure, effectively freezing their operations. The executives were now scrambling, their once calm demeanor shattered by a reality they could no longer control. I leaned back, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. This was my moment to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The notifications were no longer mere alerts, they were the very strings I could pull to orchestrate their downfall. With each incoming message, I felt a surge of power, relishing the fact that I had transformed from the dismissed employee to the puppet master of their chaos. In their panic, I could imagine the executives pointing fingers, desperate to assign blame for their predicament. Their once unified front was crumbling, much like the foundation of their company. I had ignited a storm, and I was the one holding the match. Every decision I had made, every late night spent perfecting the system, had led to this moment. I would not let it go to waste. As I continued to manipulate the system, I felt a sense of clarity. The chaos was not just a consequence of their actions, it was my opportunity to demonstrate the true cost of arrogance. They had thought they could cast me aside without repercussions, but now they were experiencing the fallout of their hubris. I was no longer the invisible architect, I was the force they had recklessly underestimated. With each passing minute, the executives were losing their grip on reality. I could almost hear their frantic whispers as they attempted to devise a plan to regain control, but it was too late. The notifications were relentless, each one a reminder that they were at the mercy of their own decisions. They had taken for granted the very system that had propelled their success, and now it was spiraling out of their control. As I monitored the unfolding chaos, I felt a rush of exhilaration. I had not just lost a job, I had ignited a revolution that would expose their vulnerabilities. They had thought they were invincible, yet here they were, grappling with the consequences of their arrogance. With each critical error, they were learning that technology is as much about understanding as it is about innovation. The clock ticked on, and I felt the weight of the moment settle around me. I had orchestrated this chaos, and now it was only a matter of time before they succumbed to the storm I had unleashed. I envisioned the executives, their faces pale, grappling with the realization that their empire was crumbling beneath their feet. They had thought they could dismiss me, but now they were learning the hard truth. The most powerful connections are often the ones that remain unseen. As the clock approached 9 a.m., I prepared to take the final steps to solidify my victory. I had ignited a fire within me, one that would not be extinguished until I reclaimed everything I had lost. The executives had ignited a storm, and I was ready to ride the waves of chaos back into the center of the arena. And as the realization set in that they had underestimated me, I felt a powerful resolve wash over me. This was not just about revenge, it was a demonstration of the true cost of arrogance in the corporate landscape. I would reclaim my place, and they would learn that in the world of technology, the architect is as essential as the building itself. In the end, this was not just a personal battle. It was a reminder to all that competence must never be overshadowed by arrogance. As I stood on the precipice of my ultimate victory, I knew that I had turned the tables. The executives would have to reckon with the consequences of their actions, and I would be there, ready to reclaim what was rightfully mine. As I took a deep breath, I felt the power shifting back to me, and I knew this was only the beginning. The game had changed, and I would not rest until I had reclaimed every ounce of respect and authority they had stripped away. This was my moment, and I would seize it with both hands. And so the story unfolded, a tale of competence versus arrogance, and a reminder that in the world of technology, the true architects hold the power. The executives would soon learn that their actions had consequences, and I would be waiting for them, ready to reclaim my place in this ruthless corporate landscape. I had transformed from the discarded into the architect of their downfall, and they would never forget it. In the end, I would emerge victorious, not just for myself, but as a testament to the importance of competence in a world where arrogance often reigns supreme. And as I prepared to make my next move, I felt alive, ready to seize the opportunities that lay ahead. Inscrevisi no canal e adiv o sininho.